Welcome to another episode of Inside Out, where we're looking at the personalities of the people running for Commissioner here in Skagit County. Joining me today is Ron WESEN. Ron, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate that. So yeah, it's an interesting time really to be running for anything, I think, at the moment. Everything's so polarized. First off, could you just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, your roots, your influences?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here today. I really appreciate being able to do this. I am a fourth-generation dairy farmer who live out in the house my grandparents built out in the Edison area. I farm with my four brothers and parents, and I grew up a couple hundred yards down the road where I live right now. I went to grade school in Edison Elementary and high school in Burlington. Went down to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, got a degree in dairy science, and came back. Got involved with agriculture in the county here and working with my parents and my brothers. And as I got more involved with the Farm Bureau and Dairy Federation, the statewide and locally here, one of the other commissioners asked me at one time if I'd be interested in running, and he said he'd help me out. And so I ran and was elected, and that's what I've been doing now for 12 years as county commissioner.
Wow. And balancing the commissioning with your other work?
The Skagit County Commissioner is a full-time job, so my brothers are doing all the work on the farm, and I get out on the weekends, and probably 10, 20 hours a month is all I get, because Commissioner's a full-time job, and that's one thing my brothers have said. My hours didn't change much working on the farm. I just get in a car and drive away instead of working on the farm there. So it's, you know, there's a lot of things you can do as County Commissioner, but also on the farm there's a lot of things to do too. So I'm used to working long hours and getting the job done.
Yeah. So I'd imagine farm issues, farm challenges must be pretty high on your agenda and your interests.
Yeah, I think agriculture is a real good thing in Skagit County here. I think that's one of the things that draws people here. You know, our quality of life with our agriculture, open spaces, and our timber issues that we have, all those have an effect on how our agriculture and our community is able to survive.
One of the things I wanted to bring up was the whole issue around COVID, the dilemma of COVID. Have you been affected directly or indirectly by COVID?
Well, all of us, because of the lockdown or shutdown and all the things that happened. So as county commissioner, we haven't had any in-person meetings with our other commissioners since March. I think it was March 23rd is when we stopped doing those. So everything now has been on Zoom or video and so forth. So it's much different than it used to be, that's for sure. And as you know, the whole community has gone through this, we've all had to adjust to what we're doing. And you know, personally, working on the farm and so forth, it hasn't affected us at all. The prices all changed. One time we couldn't find any toilet paper and all those kind of things. But as we work through it, I think people have adjusted. But we all would like to get back to normal as soon as possible.
Yeah. What would you say have been some of the biggest challenges as a commissioner dealing with COVID?
I think the biggest challenge is I think humans like to interact, and because we aren't able to interact, I mean, 4th of July, all the different parades and so forth, the summer activities, doing things with family, vacations, all those kind of things, I think it just makes Skagit County a beautiful place we have to enjoy, but we haven't really been able to enjoy those different festivals and everything. So I think that has really affected me personally and the community too. I think people would love to have the Tulip Festival that got canceled, and like I said, the 4th of July, the Lugger Rodeo, all those things just got canceled because of the COVID.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to balance the needs of the many and the perceived needs of the few. We have a situation now where people are having problems with businesses, problems getting their kids looked after because the kids have to be homeschooled and so forth, versus the immediate need of isolating people or social distancing. So it's a situation where it's difficult to please everybody.
Yeah, and there's a lot of drug and alcohol issues that people had working on those solutions, but now because of COVID, they haven't been able to do it. In the emergency rooms, they've seen more and more people come in with alcohol or drug issues. And then the abusive family situations, like you said, the kids in school, that definitely, shut down in March or April, and now starting up. And, I can't imagine being a kid in high school, the senior year in high school, going to go out for all the sports and everything, or all the different activities, and they're getting canceled. So all these things are going to have a life-altering effect on all of us living through all this.
I'm not really aiming to talk about politics and stuff, but as far as maybe early influences in your life or role models, does anyone come to mind as far as somebody that kind of inspired you in terms of your values and the direction that you were going in?
My parents have all been really active in the community, being involved in different organizations and so forth. And so that's one thing growing up with 4 other brothers. My parents, they always had different activities involved with either the church or the hospital district or school district, conservation district, state dairy groups, or Northwest Dairymen's Dairy Cooperative. I mean, all my parents have been involved in those kind of issues, and always feeling that we have to put time into the community to help improve it for the next generations. And I think that's one thing that's really affected me, and all my family is really involved in the community and all the different issues that we have. Because if you don't spend time to help your community, then nobody's going to be able to do it. And that's one thing that I think is really, really important. A lot of volunteer time, a lot of different other efforts like that. My dad was a Boy Scout leader, with 5 or 6 different kids and so forth in our Edison out area there, and just memorable things we were able to do with that. But just the amount of time it took him to do those things, plus milking cows and everything. So you could see that he was able to do those things because it's good for the kids and good for the community. And so I think they've been a very good role model for me.
So I'm sure you're biased, but what would you say are some of the best qualities about Skagit?
The best qualities of Skagit? I've had a chance to travel around the world, been able to South America and Europe and so forth, but when you come over Conway Hill and look at the beautiful Skagit Valley, it's breathtaking. And we have everything Puget Sound all the way up to North Cascades. We just have it all right here in Skagit County, and we have a very friendly group of people, a lot of good cooperation, a lot of good volunteers wanting to help all these nonprofits do great things in the county. And I think that's what makes this really, really special. When you travel around the world, this is just a wonderful area to live, and our natural resources we have here are just fantastic.
And the people themselves, what would you say are some of the kind of the great qualities of the people here?
I think they're really caring, and I think they volunteer for a lot of different organizations. I know we had to cancel most of the different fundraisers and everything, but you go to the different auctions and so forth, and there's a lot of people spending an awful lot of money to help those nonprofits go forward. And they volunteer their time, they volunteer their finances, and that helps bring together a lot of different nonprofits. We're able to help on all the different things that the community needs, and everything, the Anacortes Family Center, Anacortes Forest Lands, the Boys and Girls Club, Land Trust. There's just a lot of different organizations that are doing great things for the community. They all have their own little niche, but I think we all work together very well on trying to solve some of the problems we see in the community.
I think that, it's interesting because I certainly concur with you on that in terms of the qualities of the people here. But there is a lot of polarity here, and there's a lot of polarity everywhere. Do you think there's a way moving forward to kind of work through that and create more of a kind of a convergence of interest and beliefs?
I think the whole election cycle, I think, has been quite polarity and pulling people apart and everything. But I think hopefully after it gets over, we'll be able to go back together. Because most of those different groups I mentioned, they are not partisan politics or anything. Their goal is to, like Skagitonians preserve farmland. Their goal is to preserve farmland. Skagit Land Trust is making sure they have land available for future generations and so forth. So Habitat for Humanity, they're building homes for people. They all have their goals, and I think people from different parties can work together on those goals and go forward. So I think as long as we work on what the goals are for those nonprofits, I think we all can come back together and work on that.
Yeah. Do you think that once we get over this whole election business, that the dust will settle, water finds its own level, and we can get on with the business of what needs to be done?
I sure hope so. That's my goal. I think we need to do that. I don't think it's helpful to have people splitting apart in different individual groups. So I think it's better to work together to make this community better for everybody in the next generations.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the, looking forward with the county, what do you think are some of the big opportunities that are available to be developed?
One of the good things that happened just this last couple months, the tourist promotion area. And so we have a lot of different tourism activities come in, but because of that agreement was signed, all the different cities and so forth, we have a tax that will come from people who spend the night in hotel rooms, help promote the area to let more people come and see what we're all enjoying here. You know, one of the different issues we have is as the population increases, there's more pressure on our open space and our rural areas and our timberlands, but we have to work on that. But we have a lot of good people that come into the area here. We have a lot of good industries that are doing a good job. There's a lot of activity going on at the Port of Skagit and the Port of Anacortes on, you know, working for good jobs, good pay. You know, we just have to work on the housing, make sure we have housing available for people who want to live here, people who work here. And those are some of the struggles we're going to have, but I think those are also opportunities where we can come together and work on goals to make those happen.
Do you think it is possible to kind of please everybody there? Because as far as agriculture, as far as land, as far as housing, or the lack of housing at the moment, the need for development and stuff, you think there's a path forward that would address all of those different interests?
One thing we have going for us here is the Skagit River. It is a very large river, one of the third largest in the West Coast. Because it's so large, it has the frequency to flood, and because of the floodplain we have out in the farming grounds, the zoning we have in place is one house per 40 acres, and so we've really restricted that. And we do have the fortunate to have different areas along the different hills, like Conway Hill, Bow Hill. There are hill areas that we could develop to have more people live in. And you know, in Mount Vernon, the east side of Mount Vernon, there's quite a bit of property up there on their urban growth area, and those are some areas we can have. So we could still preserve our agriculture and open space, but also have housing in different areas.
And maybe I guess with more housing, there's more possibilities of the money in the cities being able to stay within the cities, as opposed to having people traveling.
Right. I mean, that's, you know, growth management. The goal is to have 80% of the population growth take place inside the cities or the urban growth area. And, you know, we want to have jobs available there, and we want to have housing available there so people don't have to travel down to Seattle to go to work. So I was on a call today when talking with our Washington transportation people and asking how the traffic is doing across the state. And they said we're back to about 90% of what it was a year ago. And so people are definitely starting to travel now compared to what they were, you know, 4 or 5 months ago.
What do you like best about being a commissioner? What aspect of that job do you enjoy the most?
I think it's really useful and helpful, and I enjoy working and helping solve people's problems. So when they'll call and say, you know, this is my issue, how can we work on to make it happen? A lot of it is just trying to direct them to the right agency or the right staff person so they can better understand the system. In the United States, we have a lot of different layers of government. We've got local government, you've got state government and federal government, and most people don't really understand the interactions and how they work or who is in charge of what. I mean, we have, you know, dike districts and drainage districts, school districts. Most people assume that I'm in charge of the schools. Well, we're not in charge of schools. We have an elected school board that is in charge of schools, and we have hospital districts, and so they're in charge of those things. I think it's just helping people better understand and realize how our local government works and helping to get solutions to some of the problems that they have. I think it's the most enjoyable thing of the job.
So in a nutshell, for people that aren't that familiar with the process of being a commissioner, in a nutshell, what does a commissioner do?
Skagit County Commissioners, we're in charge of all of county funds, so we're in charge of the budgets for all the different electeds in Skagit County, the county offices, the sheriff, the judges, prosecutor's office, public defender. We are in charge of all the rural zoning, so anything outside the city limits, we do the zoning on that, and then all the different county roads and the drainage issues that affect because of those county roads. Like I said, the sheriff's office, and we're in charge of their budget. The elected sheriff's in charge of his day-to-day operation, but we're in charge of his budget. So there's just a lot of different things we deal with, and the homeless, drug and alcohol issues that come through our health department. So all of those different things we deal with. So there's.
And how do you interact? There's three commissioners, right? So how do you interact? Do you debate between yourselves, or do you do that in open forum, or how do you kind of find consensus between you?
Because the open public rules in the state of Washington, anytime two commissioners together, it's an open meeting, so you can't discuss anything together unless it's a public advertised meeting. And so what generally we have an administrator who can go back and forth between the commissioners, but also we have a Monday morning briefing. We have our different department heads give their briefing of what happened the week before or what's coming up, and then we can ask them questions and contact back and forth that way during that. And then we do have sessions where we're talking about different issues that are coming forward, like we're coming up with a 2019 comprehensive plan updates, and the commissioners are going to have to vote on that in the next couple of weeks. And so the discussion there would be on camera, and now on Zoom, but it's still on camera, and you can discuss back and forth that way. So that's the process.
And generally speaking, as commissioner to date, the process between you has generally been quite effective and comfortable.
I am, but I've been there for, like I said, 12 years. One of the things that people need to realize that there's only three, and so if there's only three, you have to get 2 votes to make something happen, but it's better to have 3. And so you want to have 3 votes because it's just better unity to come forward. And so when you have a slight disagreement, you can modify maybe the proposal to make it so everybody feels comfortable going forward. But I think that's really important to have the 3 of us working in the same direction and going forward. But sometimes you only get 2 votes. But you also have to make sure that you respect the other individual, because they have the right to their decisions and their choices, but we have to move on. So if 2 of us feel one way, we'll go that way. So.
Moving forward, whether certainly if you continue to be commissioner, when that time eventually ends, what would you like to be remembered for? I think to be known for having achieved something. I don't necessarily mean it in an egotistical way. I mean in terms of what you've accomplished and what people benefit from.
I think I've done a real good job looking at the different information that comes forward and trying to understand it real well and asking questions to the different staff and electeds, so I help the public understand what's going on and how that works. There are a couple of different projects I've been involved in. One is the Community Justice Center. We were kind of stalled when I first came on, and then because of the change in some of the different staff and the community coming together, we were able to get the voters to approve that sales tax to help fund that jail. I think that's been really, really good for the community. So that kind of project, we're working on the Anacortes Squeamish Ferry facility there. We're now starting to go through the relicensing of the Seattle City Light dams. So there'll be a lot of information coming down now with the new studies and so forth on the dams there. So those are some of the things I think with my agriculture background and making sure we do all we can to don't over-regulate and don't love agriculture to death. I mean, that's one thing people do. Yes, we want to help you, but you've got to talk to the people you're trying to help to make sure you do the right thing that helps their business instead of just over-loving them to do it. So I think those are some of the things I've been able to bring to the commission.
Great. And your thoughts for the future of Skagit County? You're optimistic?
I'm optimistic. This is just a beautiful area, and we've got a lot of good people that live here, and they want to live here because they love what they see here. And I think we can work together. I think we can get over some of those political problems that we've been going through nationwide. But you still look at this country and you look at the rest of the world, this is still the best country in the world to live in. We do have our ups and downs and so forth, but there are people trying to come here from all over the world, and there's a reason they want to come here. So we have a great foundation from what our founding fathers did and some of the rules and regulations they put in place with their Constitution and everything. It's just a special thing we have here. We've got to do our best to preserve that going forward.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to come here and discuss this with us. I appreciate it and wish you all the best in the future.
Well, thank you very much for the time.
Thanks a lot.